Marcus Aurelius was once the most powerful person in the world. He tried to live a good life by following past rules. He didn't do what many Roman kings did and get drunk on wine or watch sadistic games at the Colosseum. Marcus Aurelius wanted to do the job that fate had given him, which was to help other people. So, he cared a lot about achieving his goal, but in order to do that, he had to care less about things that didn't deserve to be valued or shouldn't have been valued at all. We can say that there are a lot of things like this. Epictetus's guidebook makes a clear distinction between things we can control and things we can't. This is one of the most important ideas of the Stoics. Aside from what we do, we can't manage most, if not all, other things. This means that we don't have to give up on the world, but the Stoics thought that we should be realistic about how little control we have over these things, and that if we don't, we put too much stress on ourselves. When life hurts, it's usually because we care about things we can't change, which means we're letting them control and manage us like puppets. Then we say that the puppeteers are pulling our strings, but we let them do it. But if we stop thinking about them, they lose their power over us and we can find peace. Marcus Aurelius didn't let things outside of his power bother him. This helped him deal with the many responsibilities and challenges he faced as emperor, and stay focused on the task he thought the gods had given him. For Epictetus, this meant freedom. For others, it could be a way to focus on goals that really matter. And for some, it could just be a way to live a happy, relaxed life. What things should we stop thinking about when life hurts? And how do we do that? In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote about how to care less about things that aren't important. This video is an exploration and free interpretation of that theory. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly distinguishes between the present, past, and future. In each category, the ancient Roman emperor has valuable insights to offer about how we often care too much about them, in the wrong ways, or about the wrong things. For the sake of clarity and structure, starting with the future, as Guive has already pointed out, we tend to suffer more in our imagination than in the reality of our lives, which implies that our thoughts about the future are the source of our suffering. When it comes to the future, our imagination often runs wild, conjuring up countless scenarios of what could happen, most of which probably never will. In advance, we contemplate how to deal with potential outcomes while trembling at the idea of not knowing how the future will unfold or how things will happen in our lives. In some cases, what happens aligns with our anticipations, but in many others, fate surprises us, overwhelming us with events we couldn't have foreseen, whether for better or worse. For example, we might have spent years planning for a well-deserved retirement that doesn't happen before the first day of our golden years. If we find out we have a dangerous cancer and only have a few months to live, we might worry too much, going back and forth between the best and worst things that could happen. What if there is a third world war? What if I lose every cent I have? Such bad things could happen. But should we worry about them ahead of time, just like we do every day? But until they happen in the present, we can't do anything about them because they don't live anywhere, except in our minds. We only worry about the future because we think about it. It only lives in our minds. And if, as I said, you have cancer that will kill you, what's stopping you from living today and enjoying every important moment? No matter what is going on in your life, big or small, stand up, hold your head high, put on your best clothes and shoes, and go live moments that you will remember even after you die. Marcus Aurelius wrote that it is not the weight of the future bearing down on us, but rather that of the present. It is not the future itself that harms us, but how we handle it in the present. The misery of the future occurs in the present. And ironically, it is not the future unfolding in the present, for when we encounter it, it is already the present. When we care too much about future events, life eventually starts to hurt because we suffer them in our imagination, letting them dictate our present. So, what did Marcus Aurelius say about worrying too much about the future? Let's first consider the following quote. "Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present." He pointed out that if he could handle the present, he could also handle the future. He advised himself not to imagine all the terrible things that could happen, but rather deal with the situation he was experiencing in the present. When he focused on the present, he realized he could endure it. And if that were the case, why wouldn't he be able to handle what was yet to come? Love is fate, but it makes us stronger when we know we can get through it. As for the past, Marcus Aurelius told himself of how quickly life passes and disappears into the infinite, which is beyond our reach. We can't do anything in the past, just like we can't do anything in the future. We can't change what's already happened unless we find a way to go back in time. Marcus Aurelius said, "Remember that a person only lives in the present, in this fleeting moment. The rest of his life is either gone or hasn't happened yet. So man's life is short, and the place on earth where he lives is small." Even though our lives only happen in the present, we often spend too much time thinking about the future and the past, which are outside of the present and out of reach. Marcus Aurelius said that the past doesn't matter and doesn't mean anything. It's not that things that happened in the past don't affect the present or that we can't learn from them. It's just that we can't work with the past because it's gone. Our memories of it are often hazy, and there aren't many ways to find out what really happened. We rely on memories from our own and other people's points of view. So, we can't change the past, and our memories of it are probably also wrong. Still, we still care about things that happened in the past, and we often think back on them and feel the pain they caused us again. Some people think that if we think about the past, we can change it. But this is not true. The past is over. And all we can do is try to control our thoughts about things that have already gone and will never come back. Many people say, "I wish I could have done that differently," but that's a dream that can't come true. These thoughts can't help you because they make you want things that can't be given to you. Marcus Aurelius didn't think about what happened in the past as much as how he felt about it. We can't change what happened in the past, and it's likely that we couldn't even change what happened when it happened, but we can change where we stand in relation to what happened. At first, we might see our past as bad. We might have had a hard childhood or failed friendships or business projects. But Marcus Aurelius said that the things that happen to us are not as important as how we deal with them. He said, if something bad happens to you, remember to look inward and see what skills you have to deal with it. When you see a beautiful hand, think about the goodness that lives there. If it's a leg, think about the virtue that lives there. The same goes for each part of your body. Why treat the first as misfortune and not the second as fortune? Can you really call something misfortune that does not violate human nature? Or do you believe that something not against the will of nature can violate it? But do you know what its will is? What has happened prevents you from acting with justice, generosity, self-control, sanity, prudence, honesty, humility, frankness, and all the other qualities that allow a person's nature to flourish. Interestingly, Marcus Aurelius does not completely dismiss the value of the past. He believes that the past, by observing its rhythm, how things come and go, repeating themselves, allows us to extrapolate into the future. The present, Marcus Aurelius often mentions, is all we have. It is the narrow field to which we have access. From the present, we can look into the infinite abyss of the past and the impenetrable darkness of the future. Marcus Aurelius told people to pay attention to what they could control, which was the present moment. But even if we let go of the past and worry less about the future, we can still worry too much about things happening right now that don't need our worry. We are often unhappy with how our lives are going right now, and when things don't go the way we want, we tend to get angry, sad, or depressed. But Marcus Aurelius said that it is pointless to let what is happening in the present upset us. We can't control what happens in the world around us, but we can control how we respond to it. Nevertheless, we tend to become disturbed because we dislike what is happening, or because what we want to happen does not occur. Marcus Aurelius argues that we should not fight against what we are compelled to do. He compares people who struggle against the present to pigs kicking and screaming when being sacrificed. It is pointless because we cannot prevent or know what the future holds for us. We cannot stop people from wanting to engage in wars. We cannot prevent natural disasters, and we cannot avoid aging. Similarly, we cannot force the world to cater to our desires. We are not guaranteed that the people we are attracted to will also be attracted to us. Nor can we be sure that all human beings have the same opportunities in life. It's simply not possible. We get angry when we can't get what we want, and we get sad when we have to deal with something we don't like. So, the present becomes a torture room where we are at the mercy of the future, or we are so enchanted by the present that we hold on to it, afraid of losing what we have. Then, we let the future take hold of us again. But because we are so involved in everything around us, even things that don't last long, we often don't see what is really in our hands. Our decisions, actions, and opinions. Marcus Aurelius thought that the laws of nature were in charge of us. If we go against it, or get sad or angry about it, we are just deserters and runaways. We shouldn't waste our time being upset or attached to our circumstances, but instead we should accept and welcome the way things are in nature and focus on working with them. In the 7th book of his Meditations, he wrote that we should focus on what we have instead of what we don't have. This is one way to accept the present. But be careful to act as if what you don't have doesn't exist. Look at what you do have, the things you value most, and think about how much you would miss them if they weren't there. But be careful not to become so happy that you start to overvalue them, to the point where you would be upset if you lost them. However, accepting circumstances can be challenging, especially when we face significant hardships and life keeps handing us lemons repeatedly. We wonder, can't we catch a break? But for Marcus Aurelius, life's adversities and problems are not an excuse to behave like pigs. He argues that it's an opportunity to practice virtue, or in other words, to apply Stoic philosophy to our lives, the art of living. It's not about how incredible and fortunate our external circumstances are because they are fleeting, fragile, and not ours. It's about how we face the events we encounter. That's what we should care about. Keep that in mind. Do your best to live today and live your life to the best of your ability, no matter what your physical, mental, financial, or other situation is. Try to start a change in something you can reach, and just get going. Don't look at other people, and don't think about the future or the past. Look at what's right in front of you and start. I hope that you get the good things you want out of life. Remember that you may lose your drive at some point, but keep going and do the same things every time. So far, thank you for watching the video. If this material has made your life better, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.